So we started off today with just finding this missing question mark number mentally, and all of you knew that if I want to know what I add to 2.5 to get 8 3/4, I just subtract, so it's 6 1/4. And if I'm asking what do I add to a negative 2.5 to get a negative 8.75, it's negative 6 1/4. So they're alike in that they're the same numbers, but they're different in that this is like money in your pocket and this is a debt. Okay, you've been solving these kind of equations for a really long time. What number plus 7 is 11? And all we're doing today is replacing that question mark with x. So this just says what number plus 7 equals 11? And 11 minus 7 is 4. And as you know from your related fact triangles, addition and subtraction are closely related. What number plus 13 is 49? Well, I just replaced the question mark with an x, and I know that 49 minus 13 is 36, so 36 plus 13 is 49. In general, you just subtract to solve an addition equation. So the fact triangle shows you how to solve equations in this form. If b is my total, and I'm looking for some number x, and I know a, so a and b are numbers, and x is my unknown. If I want to find what x is, it's just b minus a equals x, because x plus a equals b. So just think about the related facts in a fact triangle. X plus a is b, a plus x is b, b minus a is x, and b minus x is a. So I'm going to use the b minus a to find my x. So here's an example of one. The 55 is on top. 24 is my other known. I want to know what plus 24 is 55. So the related subtraction problem is 55 minus 24 is x. So it's 31. Always check by adding. 24 and 31 is 55, so I know I'm right. And when they're negative, it's the same thing. Negative 1.7 minus 11.3 gives me x. That's the related subtraction problem. And remember, to subtract a number, you add its opposite. So this becomes addition, and I take the opposite of 11.3. So I'm adding a debt to a debt, and I get a bigger debt. So x is negative 13. To check it, I literally put negative 13 in for my problem, so negative 1.17 minus a negative 11.3 has to equal, negative 1.7 minus a negative 13 has to equal 11.7. I add the opposite, and negative 1.7 plus 13 is 11.3. So this makes sense because I have a negative sum, so this must be more negatives. If I had €11.30, negative 13 euro is my debt. I pay this much off and I still owe negative 1.7. That's my sum. So it checks. Same with this one. My related subtraction is negative 1.25 minus a negative 3.75 equals x. Here it is right here. We add the opposite. If I owe €1.25 and I have €3.35, to find out how much I still owe or have, I subtract, and I still have €2.50. So 2.5 is positive because 2.5 plus a negative 3.75 gives me a negative balance. I only have €2.50. I owe more than I have, so I still am in debt. So use money to help make sure it makes sense for you. And use the fact triangle. So what we find is that b minus a equals x. b minus a equals x because x plus a equals b. x plus a equals b. And we play the game. So in the first one, this is the amount of money I had at first. I took this money out, so I subtract 92.68, and this is my balance. So to figure out how much I have, I add these two together to get x. So I take the money I have left plus the money I took out is the money I had before I took any money out. So it's my original balance in my account. And then the next one was find the answer, so it's $975.42. And you can check it, subtract that, and you get this. All right, make a fact triangle to show this. So here's my 10.6, here's my negative 5.2, here's my n. So to solve this, it's 10.6 minus a negative 5.2 equals n. And now I add the opposite, and I add these together, and I get 15.8. And again, put in my sum here, my x and my 100 here. So to find x, it's negative 40 minus 100 equals x. Negative 40 minus 100. Negative 40 minus 100, I add the opposite, I get negative 140. And if you check it, negative 140 plus 100 equals negative 40. Negative 140 plus 100 is negative 40. When the left side equals the right side, you have a check in algebra. Daryl had D dollars, and he withdrew this much, and now he has this much. So to find out how much money he has, I add these together to get D. So I add them together to get D. I show my check by subtracting that, minus my withdrawal, and get my balance, and yes, it checks. So this is just reviewing. If 7.5 equals 7.5, I can add the same thing to both sides. In this case, I added 4.5. So the addition property of equality simply says, if I add the same thing to both sides of an equation, think of the equal sign as both sides of the balance scale, then I maintain balance. So 7.5 plus 4.5 is 12, 7.5 plus 4.5 is 12. It proves that the result is still equal. So the addition property of equality simply says I can add the same thing to both sides of an equation, and that equality is preserved, or it stays. So in general, here's how we get this property. I have two knowns, and this is what I'm looking for. I can add a negative a to both sides because of the addition property of equality. Notice on the left side, when I simplify, positive a plus a negative a, these are opposites. And when I add opposites, I get 0. So they're gone. These are no longer here. That's a 0. And on the right side of the equation, I have b plus a negative a. And then b plus a negative a is the same thing as b minus a. So on the left side, I have x, what I'm looking for. And on the right side, I get it with b minus a. This is just how we started today. X plus 4 equals 11. 11 minus 4 equals x. X plus a equals b. X is equal to b minus a. It's just like the fact triangle. All right, so we went over this example 2 on page 308. Make sure you read all that. Work down your paper, which is why I have you fold it in half. And then we did all these problems with the fact triangle in class, so you can review each answer. To get x by itself, I have to add 4.67 to 8.9 to negative 8.9, and I get negative 4.23. To get x alone, I have to subtract this from negative 1.4, and I get negative 7.18. Remember, to subtract, you add the opposite. So a debt and a debt is a bigger debt. To get rid of subtracting 4.5, I have to add 4.5 to both sides, because negative 4.5 plus 4.5, those are opposites. That leaves x by itself, and I end up with 17 3/10. So 17 3/10 minus 4.5 equals 12.8. Just do your check. And again, to get x by itself, I have to add 67.9 to negative 34.5, and that gives me 33 4/10. And just use your calculator to check these. That's a great way to use that tool. And then we went over your quick quiz, and remember, if you're going to do that retake, it's tomorrow at lunch. That's Wednesday at lunch, or Thursday after school. You need to do it before the spring break. This is tonight's homework, and that's it.